there for Canada, just out of the medals, but they are the defending champions in this, the women's lightweight coxless 4. Drawn in lane 1, exactly the same crew that represented Canada in
ready?
Tasmania. Then Great Britain in 2, the United States in 3, China,
USA,
who
ready?
won the bronze medals, although there's only one of that
China,
surviving crew
ready?
from last year in this year's boat.
Australia,
the
ready?
silver medalists, again just one survivor,
Germany,
and in lane
ready?
number 6, the German crew. A
Attention.
new combination, the Germans only 5th
Are you
in
ready?
Tasmania.
Go.
Quick start from the Canadians near to us, but nothing in it in the first 5 strokes.
The Americans getting off to a good start. Clean in these difficult conditions. The water's always roughest down by the start in a headwind. That's where the water builds up.
Portugal, lane number 1.
They've got to get off quickly, they've got to get off and then get into a pace, a good pace that's going to carry them right through the race. But it's the Canadians, surprisingly, who've got dropped here, near side, reigning world champions. And it's the Americans who've got their noses in front. And the British in lane 2, just sitting behind China. China, again, showing what a remarkable surge this country, who's new to the sport, have made in the last 2 or 3 years.
But they've made this medal very much one of their own. It's not exactly the same crew, but they did take the gold medal, the Chinese in Bled in 1989 and before that in Milan. So this their favourite category. But now we take a look at the Germans. They were second in Lucerne behind Great Britain. So on the form book, this outfit really has something to find. Gisa Seger stroking that crew. And still leading the United States through the first 500, ahead of China on the left-hand side of them in lane 4. Britain nicely in contention there. And Australia, the silver medalist, also well there in this very early stage. The strange thing, as you said early on, is what has happened to the Canadians.
Canadians nosed into the picture a couple of times down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, but they seem to be dropping back all the time. In 4th place at the moment, Australia, that's Rebecca Joyce, the only surviving member of this crew from last year's silver medal effort. There she is, giving a good hard finish for her crew, sitting back into the headwind, 4th at the moment. But you can see those waves there, very hard for lightweight crews, giving them so much further to go. Slow progress through this very difficult headwind. But they're sitting up well, they're not catching water, it's good, clean, very efficient rowing. What you'd expect from Australia.
Just a couple of seconds off the pace after the first 500 metres, but they're going to need to close up, because I think they've got some very tough competition on their hands here. Certainly the United States and China, the crews to beat. They both qualified directly into this final. The others through repechage and semi-finals.
China have rather made this their own event in the last couple of years. They've really dominated it. They came through from juniors, and here they are. They've taken the lead from America, and as they come up to halfway, they're looking very long and very powerful.
British also very much in the picture there in lane 2, and I can think back to Bled in 1989 when they had a real battle with the Chinese. Now the Canadian blades. Let's have a look at the work and perhaps we can discover what's wrong in this boat, Dan.
Hard to say, they were world champions last year. It may be that they've kept the crew together right through the winter, and that's quite difficult to keep up the motivation. They might be suffering from that, or they may just be having quite a struggle with this headwind, because it's very strong and it's giving them a lot of hard work early in the race. But there the Chinese are well out in front, and the British are putting the Americans, the early leaders, the British are putting the Americans under pressure. It's a brand new crew here, only one from last year. Kate Brownlow at stroke is the only person from last year. The others are new, and as they go into the 1500 metre mark, it's China in front, the United States just holding off Britain, who are in 3rd place.
Just under 2 seconds separating those 3 crews. Now there's a picture of Kate Brownlow setting the rhythm for that crew. Behind her, Anne-Marie Dryden, Claire Davies and Alison Brownless in the bow.
Steering very difficult in these conditions. You can see how they're weaving a little bit. Now they're heading for the far side, for the far buoys. Very difficult to get a good line. And that's having an effect on all the crews. It is one of the rowers in the boat who's having to steer with their foot. It's very, very difficult. And in fact, the British have gone past the Americans, the early leaders. The British have gone past, they're into second place, and they're now putting pressure on the Chinese. They're all rivals from China. China still holding the lead, and they are overlapping the Chinese.
Well, very interesting to see there that the British were right over on the left-hand side of their lane there, and not too far away from those American blades. Looking across there, you've got Ellen Minzner, who's stroking that American crew. She's very well aware of what's just happened. She's gone from first to third, and the Chinese are trying to pull away and get open water. And the British have got to stay with the Chinese. They've really got to work hard now through this third 100 to put the Chinese under pressure. This is what they did in Bled a couple of years ago, and the Chinese found that little bit extra.
Look at the discipline in this crew. They're rowing technically extremely well, very long forward, and tremendous power with the legs. Very good use of the legs. Picking it up long. The British now putting them under pressure, though. The British have got a quarter of a length overlap. They're winding it up. Very inexperienced people in this British boat, so they're learning every stroke.
But I've got to say, Dan, that as they come to the end of the third 500, even though they have closed it, the Chinese are still continuing to move faster than anybody else on the water. Nice shot from the reverse angle here. You could start to see the final stands, and a really good crowd out here in Vienna for the second day of finals. The Chinese winding it up again, and I don't think the British are going to be able to respond to this. And
certainly the Chinese moved it at 500, didn't they? That last 500, the Chinese just changed gear and they opened up. Ooh, they took about a third of a length just in those 15 strokes.
And the interesting thing here is perhaps the British have used a lot of energy there to try and close the gap on the Chinese. They're going to have to watch out on the Americans re-challenging them perhaps for the silver medal. Quick shot of the Canadians well down the field, but look at this performance from the Chinese. Liao really taking her crew home in some style.
The British closed back again a little bit, but they're not going to catch these Chinese. They changed gear at 1500 and they've opened it right up. The British having to hold off the Americans, who are coming again. It's going to be quite a tight one there for second place.
Chinese perhaps now, well, I think almost certainly, Dan, on their way to their first gold medal of these championships, and well deserved. A smart looking outfit, both in terms of their rowing and also their strip, which is perhaps one of the most attractive on the regatta course. Coming through now, the bow of the Chinese boat, moving really sweetly through this difficult water, and the margin of victory is impressive. So the gold medal they won in 1989, they've regained the title, as Great Britain now looks solid for the silver medal. I don't think the Americans have got any more to give, as we come up to the line now. Gold to China, silver to Great Britain, with the United States taking the bronze. And then on the far side, Germany ahead of Australia, with the Canadians, last year's champions, only sixth. And obviously something very wrong with that crew. But what delight from the Chinese.
Very good display of headwind rowing. They kept their length, they kept their power in the water, they kept their cohesion, and it paid off beautifully. They were really unchallengeable that last 500 meters.
7:37.06, 4 seconds clear, almost 7 ahead of the United States. And over 20 seconds separating first and sixth, just showing you how different the conditions are today out on this splendid regatta course. Well, some nice warm smiles there, and everybody really happy with that result. Yet another country on the medal roll of honour. John Boltby, Secretary General of FISA, presenting the medals to a smashing Chinese crew. So now the men's light